How the do I do this puzzle? I don't even know where to begin. There's like everywhere. I don't understand. Yeah, I'm too stupid for this game. Hey, I've been digging for ages. It's been, almost 3 years. That is a long time. Just to recap, normally I host a late night talk show about emulating video game art styles. We would take a look at a game, break it down into parts, and then I would show you how I would do my own version, ultimately having both you and I learn more about video game art. Instead of doing that, I'm going to be escaping and refusing to teach you anything. You get nothing, no deep dive, no explanation, no nothing. I know you can see the video title. I don't care. I'm getting out of here. All I'm going to do is dig and dig and dig until I reach an underground cave or hit a subterranean lake and drown. So you can watch it if you like. It's not going to be very interesting. It's just a whole bunch of... Okay? Okay. Okay, fine. I'll show you how to do it like Bubba Is You. If you haven't played it, Bubba Is You is make Alex feel like a dumbass simulator. How the do I do this puzzle? I don't even know where to begin. There's like everywhere. I don't understand. Yeah, I'm too stupid for this game. Bubba Is You is also a grid-based puzzle game where you move around word and object tiles to mess with the rules of the level you're in. Bubba plus is plus you lined up next to each other means that you play as a little sheep thing. Rock plus is plus you means you play as a rock. You get it. The puzzles in this game get very difficult. I'm talking you will feel like a dummy for playing it difficult. I mean, look at this. There are rules all over the place. There's a lot here for the player to understand and grapple with, so the design of each element needs to be clear and in this case, literally readable. It looks like most of Hempooli's resources went into the game's logic and making a million puzzles to solve, so the visuals are purposefully efficient and fast to make. Imagine if the design had beveling, Fresnel effect, rim lighting, HD textures, it would just all take too long. The art style is pretty cute, it has some pretty nice touches going on. Let's do a little art breakdown and I can show you what specific things I've noticed. Art breakdown. The levels in Bubba Is You are made up of a huge grid. You can only move around up, down, left and right, like a chessboard. Sometimes levels are zoomed in and cozy, sometimes they're large, zoomed out and complicated. So there isn't a set size of the levels. We can pretty much make any size we want when we do our version. I found this page on Steam that shows the game has a small palette as well, with very few colours overall. The tiles themselves are 24 by 24 pixels, and usually only a single colour. I think there are assets with more colours in the expansion packs, but let's ignore that for now. The way I would describe the tile design and the game in general is crayon-y. It has a childlike aspect to its squiggly and thick lines. You won't find a whole lot of single pixels, more chunky and blobby masses. Think less Kiki and more Booba. Hey, I wonder if the characters Kiki and Baba are based on Kiki and Booba. Could be. Could also be that I'm just going Baba, Kiki, Poo Papa and literally not making any sense, but for whatever. Character design. Characters have an emphasis on being cute and having quite stubby proportions. Bodies are often a giant blob, limbs are 2 or 3 pixels thick, and the eyes are 2 by 2 pixels each and drawn wonky on purpose. Make sure you make them wonky. All you have to do is make sure one eye is 1 pixel above the other eye, like this. In general, you aren't going to see spindly single pixel lines a whole lot. Most things in this game are chunky. Textiles. Not textiles, but like text tiles, you know? For these text tiles, they range from 2 to 7 letters long. Any more letters than that and the words would just get too cramped to read. Like the character's limbs, text lines are 2 pixels thick. Something I think that's pretty unique about this game is that the text on the tiles are drawn by hand, it's not a font. I reckon they're also done from scratch every time because I found 2 of the same letter drawn completely differently. Animation. All the tiles wiggle and animate like a flipbook drawing. They use 3 frames each to do this effect. which for any other game would be a lot of drawing to do, but the style is messy and very forgiving. My guess is that Hempuli drew the tile 3 times with onion skinning on, and then maybe did a bit of cleanup. Onion skinning is when you can see the previous frame kind of ghosted. So, you draw your first frame, go to the next one, and then you'll see the previous one. You kind of keep animating with the previous one in mind. You will see later that each tile can be made pretty quickly. It's usually only one color and a tiny sprite after all. Characters have an extra layer of complexity to them when it comes to animating. As you can see here, an inanimate object like a flag just wobbles when it's moving around. No difference to when it's stationary. A character will actually turn to face the direction they're moving. For each of those directions, they have 4 frames of a movement cycle. Each of those frames is made up of 3 frames of wobble. This is the first game I've played where frames have their own frames. So that's 4 directions times 4 frames of walk animation per direction times 3 frames of wobble per walk animation frame, which gets us to like 48 frames. And then to top it all off, left and right are mirrored, so we actually have to cut out frames and get rid of those. So a quarter of those have to go. I'm confused. Are you confused? Good, because it would be embarrassing if it was just me. Anyway, it's not worth explaining, as we're just making an image that looks like Baba Is You and not like a working game with all the frames plugged in, so this video is taking me long enough as it is.
Other stuff I don't want to make a whole separate section for, so I'll call it Miscellaneous.
There is some sparse tile work, also known as auto tiling, going on. Maybe one day I'll do a video on how tile sets work, but all you need to know is that there are a set of rules how the walls all connect up to each other in different configurations. They also have 3 frames of animation, which I find interesting. There are little single color glint effects on the win area, and a little puff when the characters move. These effects are the same color as the object. Pretty minimalist. Sometimes there are ambient little floaties in the background too. When it comes down to it, this art style is about being cute, messy, simple, and readable. I don't imagine it was heavily scrutinized on a pixel-by-pixel basis when he was making the art. I reckon we covered most of the aspects of the look of the game. Let's get into the speed paint. So to start off with, I'm making sure that I lay everything in. Just getting the composition right, so not being too pedantic about the designs. Something that was quite difficult right off the bat was making my own level, like coming up with a theme that felt unique, because there are just so many levels in the game and there's so many things that already exist, cars, cats, dogs, so every time I came up with something, it already existed, which sucks. I settled on the idea that I would just make whatever and not look up what's already in the game. That way, if I'm drawing something and it's in there, it's my own take and I'm not like tainting it with what's already in there. An example of that is like rocks on the ground. The game has lots of debris, rocks, broken tiles, so I know that already exists probably in multiple forms, so I just drew it. I was like, this is what I think looks good here. If it already exists, like that doesn't matter. It's better to actually just fill the scene with stuff. You can see when I'm drawing one tile, it's propagating like to the rest of them. There's that wall, all the tiles are like linked in the program, so it's pretty handy. It means that once I set everything up, I can just draw like one section and then it will fill out and I can really see what the whole thing is going to look like. I used to do it by hand and then copy and paste everything, but now it just like updates live in Sprite, which is pretty cool. At this point, you can see me starting to add wobble to everything. So that's those 3 frames of wobble that everything has. So most of the rest of the video is just me going over everything I've drawn 3 times to ensure that it feels like the rest of the game. Something that I had thought of while I was working on it was maybe I could just erase parts, like keep the same drawing 3 times and just erase sections to make it look like it was wobbling. But I think the authenticity comes from actually redrawing it every time, so it's really wonky on purpose and then just a bit of cleanup. Come to think of it, now that I'm saying this, I've drawn a whole background, and then I have to draw the whole background again and again in order for everything to have 3 frames of animation. So there you go, a custom-made Bubba Azure level. Hopefully the steps were clear. As usual, let me know if you have any suggestions for future vids. I'm gonna get back to digging.
Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand. I don't care, I'm still free. You can't.